I am Ethan, 27 years old, and last month I experienced something I never thought possible. My appendix ruptured, requiring emergency surgery. I called my family repeatedly, but they all chose my cousin Brian's birthday party over being at the hospital with me. I woke up alone in recovery, groggy and disoriented, only to see my phone light up with a message from my mom. "We need to talk. Urgently." Below it, 89 missed calls. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if family drama stories resonate with you. I have always been the responsible one in my family. Growing up in suburban Chicago, I learned early on that reliability and hard work were my tickets to success. I am now an architectural designer at a respected firm downtown, having worked my way up from intern to project lead over the past 5 years. My apartment is modest but comfortable, located in a renovated building that I helped design the interior for as one of my first projects. My family consists of my parents, Robert and Catherine, my younger sister Amanda, and a large extended family of aunts, uncles, and cousins who all live within a 30-mile radius of each other. We are the kind of family that gets together for every birthday, holiday, and random Sunday dinner. At least that is what we project to the outside world. The reality is more complicated. Being the oldest child, I stepped into the role of the peacemaker and problem solver. When Amanda had trouble in school, I tutored her. When Dad lost his job 10 years ago, I worked 2 jobs during college to help with bills. When Mom needed someone to organize the family reunion, guess who made all the arrangements? Me. I did it all without complaint, because that is what family does right. But somewhere along the way, my contributions became expected rather than appreciated. The thank yous became rarer, and the demands became greater. Meanwhile, my cousin Brian emerged as the golden child of the extended family. Brian, the charismatic marketing executive who always had the perfect story to tell at family gatherings. Brian, whose achievements were celebrated with parties, while my promotion to project lead last year warranted only a quick toast before the conversation turned back to his latest adventures. I never begrudged Brian his success, but the imbalance in how our family treated us was becoming increasingly obvious. My girlfriend Rachel pointed it out 6 months ago when she attended her first family gathering with me. "Did you notice how your mom interrupted you 3 times when you were talking about your new project, but everyone sat in rapt attention for 20 minutes while Brian talked about his golf game?" she asked on the drive home. I had noticed, of course, but hearing someone else confirm it made the reality harder to dismiss. Rachel, a pediatric nurse with an uncanny ability to read people, had seen in one evening what I had been conditioning myself to accept for years. The week before the incident, I had been feeling off. Nothing serious at first, just a general discomfort that I attributed to stress at work. We were finalizing designs for a new community center, and the hours had been long. I had skipped a couple of family dinners to meet deadlines, which resulted in passive-aggressive texts from my mother about making time for what matters. On Wednesday, I felt a sharp pain in my lower right abdomen while presenting to clients. I dismissed it as indigestion and pushed through the meeting. By Thursday, the pain had intensified, but I took some over-the-counter pain relievers and carried on. Rachel called that night from Philadelphia, where she was attending a nursing conference. "You sound terrible," she said. "Have you seen a doctor?" "It is nothing," I assured her. "Probably just something I ate." "Promise me you will go to urgent care if it gets worse," she insisted. "I will be back Sunday night." I promised, not knowing how prophetic her concern would prove to be. That night I tossed and turned, the pain coming in waves. I remembered my cousin Brian's 30th birthday party was scheduled for Saturday at my parents' house. It had been the topic of conversation for weeks, with my mother orchestrating elaborate decorations and my father splurging on top-shelf liquor. Friday morning, I dragged myself to work, determined not to fall behind on the community center project. My colleague James noticed my pallor immediately. "Dude, you look like death warmed over," he said, placing a cup of coffee on my desk. "What is going on?" "Just not feeling great," I admitted, wincing as another stab of pain hit me. "That does not look like not feeling great," James said, his brow furrowing with concern. "That looks like appendicitis. My brother had it last year. You need to go to the hospital." I brushed him off, but an hour later, when I nearly passed out walking to a meeting, I knew something was seriously wrong. The pain had become constant, no longer coming in waves, but burning steadily like a hot coal lodged in my side. Little did I know that this physical pain was about to be compounded by an emotional wound that would force me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. By Friday afternoon, the pain had become unbearable. I was hunched over at my desk, cold sweat beading on my forehead, when James walked in with our supervisor, Patricia. I called an Uber. James announced, "You are going to the hospital right now." The community center presentation, I protested weakly. "Can wait," Patricia said firmly. "Your health comes first, Ethan. Go get checked out." The ride to Northwestern Memorial was a blur of pain. Each bump in the road sent shooting pains through my abdomen. The driver, noticing my condition in the rearview mirror, asked if he should speed up. "Please," I managed to say between gritted teeth. In the emergency room, I was triaged quickly. The nurse took one look at me and rushed me into an examination room. Blood pressure, temperature, and a quick physical exam followed. When the doctor pressed on my lower right abdomen and then released, the pain intensified so much that I cried out. "Classic Rovsing sign," the doctor said. "We need to get a CT scan, but I am almost certain this is appendicitis, and from your symptoms it might have already ruptured." While waiting for the scan, I pulled out my phone. It was time to call my family. First, I called my mother. "Mom, I am at Northwestern Memorial. They think my appendix has ruptured. I might need emergency surgery." There was a pause on the other end. "Today, but we are setting up for Brian's party tomorrow. All the decorations just arrived." The response hit me like a bucket of ice water. "Mom, this is serious. The doctor says it could be life-threatening if they do not operate soon." "Well, can they not just give you antibiotics or something? Your father is picking up the custom cake in an hour, and I need him to hang the banner when he gets back." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Mom, they are talking about surgery. Tonight. Can you or Dad come to the hospital?" Another pause. "Honey, there is just so much to do for tomorrow. Brian's turning 30, it is a milestone. You know how important this is to everyone." Next, I called my sister Amanda, hoping for a different response. "An appendectomy? That is like a routine procedure, right?" she said. "You will be fine. Besides, I am in charge of the party games for tomorrow. I cannot leave now." My Uncle Steve, who lived closest to the hospital. "Bad timing, kiddo. I am picking up your aunt from the airport. She flew in specially for Brian's big day." Aunt Sarah. "Oh dear, that sounds serious. But I am watching Brian's kids while he and his girlfriend finish shopping for the party. Can you call someone else?" With each call, the knot in my stomach tightened, and it had nothing to do with my inflamed appendix. Not a single family member offered to come to the hospital. Not one. The CT scan confirmed the doctor's suspicion. My appendix had not just inflamed, it had ruptured, spilling bacteria into my abdominal cavity. The situation had escalated from urgent to critical. "We need to get you into surgery immediately," the surgeon, Dr. Patel, explained. "The infection can spread quickly and lead to peritonitis, which can be life-threatening." While the nurses prepared me for surgery, I made one last desperate call. Rachel was still in Philadelphia, but she answered on the first ring. "Ethan, what is wrong?" I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am getting on the next flight," she said without hesitation. "Have you called your family? Is someone with you?" I called. "They are all busy with Brian's birthday preparations." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Ethan put the doctor on the phone. Rachel said, her voice tight with controlled anger. I handed my phone to Dr. Patel, who spoke briefly with Rachel, explaining the procedure and expected recovery. After hanging up, she looked at me with concern. "Your girlfriend is a nurse. She is very knowledgeable. She asked all the right questions." Then more gently, "Is there really no family member who can be here?" I shook my head, the weight of the realization crushing me. They are all busy with a birthday party. The anesthesiologist arrived, introducing himself as Dr. Chen. "We are going to take good care of you, Ethan," he assured me. "When you wake up, the pain will be managed, and we will have you on antibiotics to fight the infection." As they wheeled me toward the operating room, I made one final attempt, sending a group text to my parents, sister, and several aunts and uncles. Going into surgery now. Appendix ruptured. Serious situation. Please come if you can. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia took effect was my phone screen showing the message delivered, but not a single response. As I drifted into unconsciousness, I could not help but wonder. If I did not wake up, would they regret choosing a birthday party over being there for me in what could have been my final hours? I awoke to the steady beep of monitors and the sterile smell of hospital antiseptic. The recovery room was dimly lit with nurses moving efficiently between patients. My throat felt raw from the breathing tube, and a dull throb emanated from my abdomen, muted by whatever pain medication coursed through my veins. "Welcome back," said a gentle voice. The nurse leaned over me, checking my vitals. Her name tag read, Lisa. "Surgery went well," Lisa continued, noting my confused expression. "Dr. Patel removed your appendix and cleaned the infection. You will need to stay for a few days on IV antibiotics, since there was significant contamination from the rupture." My first coherent thought was to look for my family. I turned my head, slowly scanning the room for a familiar face. There was no one. Did anyone come for me? My voice was a raspy whisper. Lisa's expression softened with sympathy. "Not yet, honey, but your girlfriend called. She is on her way from the airport." The absence of my family hit me harder than the physical pain. I had undergone emergency surgery, and not a single relative had shown up. The birthday party had won out. "Your personal items are in this drawer," Lisa said, retrieving a plastic hospital bag. "Your phone has been going off non-stop for the last hour." She handed me my phone, and the screen lit up with notifications. 89 missed calls, dozens of text messages, and at the top a message from my mother, "We need to talk, urgently." My hands trembled as I unlocked the phone. The timestamp on my mother's message showed it was sent 3 hours after my surgery began. What could possibly be so urgent that it warranted this message? And so many calls, yet not urgent enough for anyone to come to the hospital. I scrolled through the texts, each one more bewildering than the last. "Mom, why would you do this today of all days, Dad? Your mother is very upset. Call as soon as you can. Amanda way to steal Brian's thunder. Again, Uncle Steve low move kid. Really low. Aunt Linda. We are all very disappointed in you." What was happening? I had just survived a life-threatening medical emergency, and my family seemed to be angry at me. For what, getting sick at an inconvenient time? Then I saw it. A Facebook notification. Brian had posted photos from his pre-birthday dinner. The caption read, "Amazing surprise at my birthday dinner. Thanks to everyone who made this special announcement perfect." I tapped on the post. The photos showed my entire family gathered at my parents' house. Brian was down on one knee in front of his girlfriend Madison, an engagement ring box open in his hand. Everyone was smiling, raising champagne glasses. The timestamp was just 30 minutes after I had gone into surgery. Brian had proposed at his birthday celebration. While I was under anesthesia fighting for my life, my cousin was putting a ring on his girlfriend's finger, surrounded by our cheering family. And somehow, based on the messages flooding my phone, I was the villain in this scenario. The door to the recovery room opened, and Rachel rushed in, still wearing her conference lanyard, pulling a small suitcase behind her. "Ethan," she cried, rushing to my bedside. Her face was pale with worry, her eyes red-rimmed from either tears or lack of sleep. Probably both. I got here as fast as I could. The flight was delayed, and traffic from O'Hare was a nightmare. She took my hand, her eyes scanning my face, my monitors, the IV lines. The nurse part of her assessing my condition, even as the girlfriend part of her was clearly fighting back emotion. The doctor said the surgery went well, but there was significant infection. "Why did you wait so long to go to the hospital?" I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. "You know me, always thinking things will get better on their own." Rachel squeezed my hand. "You could have died, Ethan. Peritonitis is nothing to mess around with." "I know." I think I was in denial. I hesitated, then showed her my phone. "Look at this." Rachel took the phone, her expression changing from concern to disbelief to fury as she scrolled through the messages. "Are they serious right now?" she demanded. "You had emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix, and they are mad at you for what exactly?" Taking attention away from Brian's proposal, apparently I said, the hurt in my voice unmistakable. Rachel set the phone down with controlled deliberation, as if afraid she might throw it across the room if she moved too quickly. "This is beyond ridiculous. This is emotional abuse, Ethan. No normal family behaves this way." Before I could respond, Dr. Patel entered the recovery area. She checked my chart and then addressed both of us. "The surgery was successful, but I want to emphasize how serious this was. Mr. Anderson, you came very close to a life-threatening situation. The infection had already spread significantly. If you had waited even a few more hours, we would be having a very different conversation right now." I saw Rachel's face pale even further at the doctor's words. "He will make a full recovery though, right?" Rachel asked, her professional demeanor momentarily faltering. "With proper care and rest, yes, but he will need close monitoring for the next few days. The bacterial contamination was extensive. That is why we need to keep him on IV antibiotics." After Dr. Patel left, Rachel pulled a chair close to my bed and sat down, still holding my hand. "I am not leaving," she said firmly. "I called the hospital where I work and took emergency family leave." The word family hung in the air between us, its meaning shifting in real time. In that moment, Rachel felt more like family than the people who shared my blood. As night fell, Rachel remained by my side, eventually falling asleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair, her hand still intertwined with mine. In the dim light of the hospital room, with pain medication dulling both my physical and emotional agony, I drifted in and out of consciousness, my phone occasionally lighting up with more accusations from the people who should have been phone occasion. There for me when I needed them most. The next afternoon, Dr. Patel deemed me stable enough to be discharged, though she emphasized the need for rest and continued oral antibiotics. The hospital staff provided detailed care instructions for my surgical wound and warning signs of complications to watch for. "Is someone taking you home?" the discharge nurse asked. Before I could answer, Rachel stepped forward. "Yes, he will be staying with me. I am a registered nurse and can monitor his recovery." As we left the hospital, Rachel guided me carefully to her car. The walk from the wheelchair to the passenger seat was more exhausting than I had anticipated. Every movement pulled at my stitches, a sharp reminder of the trauma my body had endured. "We will go to my place," Rachel said decisively as she started the car. "It is closer to the hospital if we need to come back, and I have a first-floor bedroom set up for you." I nodded, too tired to argue, and honestly relieved not to be going back to my empty apartment. Rachel's two-bedroom condo was cozy and well-equipped, with a spare room she had already prepared with extra pillows and easy access to a bathroom. Once I was settled in bed, Rachel brought me water and medication. "Are you up for talking to your family, or do you want to rest first?" I glanced at my phone, which had continued to accumulate messages. I should probably call my mom back, find out what this is all about. Rachel nodded, her expression neutral, but I could tell she was bracing herself. "I will be in the kitchen making soup. Call if you need me." Taking a deep breath, I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the first ring. "Ethan, finally, do you have any idea what you have done?" Her tone made me flinch. There was no, "How are you feeling?" or "I'm so glad you are okay," just immediate accusation. "Mom, I had emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix. What exactly do you think I have done?" Do not play innocent with me, young man. You knew Brian was planning to propose at his birthday dinner. You knew how important this was to him, to all of us. I was genuinely confused. What? No, I did not know that. No one told me anything about a proposal. Of course, we did not tell you. It was a surprise. But you must have overheard us talking about it, and you could not stand Brian having the spotlight for once. My head was spinning, and not just from the pain medication. Mom, are you seriously suggesting I ruptured my own appendix on purpose to take attention away from Brian's proposal? Well, the timing is awfully convenient, is not it? Just when everyone was gathering for the announcement, suddenly you have this emergency that you expect everyone to drop everything for. I was speechless. The accusation was so irrational, so divorced from reality that I could not even begin to formulate a response. Uncle Robert said, "You have always been jealous of Brian's success," my mother continued. "And this just proves it. Do you know Brian and Madison had to rush their announcement because everyone was distracted by your text messages? The professional photographer we hired barely got any good shots because people were checking their phones." The sheer absurdity of the situation might have been funny if it had not been so painful. My own mother was berating me for having a medical emergency during my cousin's party. "Mom, I almost died," Dr. Patel said. "If I had waited a few more hours, the infection could have been fatal. Does that mean anything to you?" There was a pause, and for a moment I thought I might have broken through. "Well, you did not die, did you? But you did ruin Brian and Madison's special moment, something they can never get back." The callousness of her response left me breathless. It was as if I was speaking to a stranger, not the woman who had raised me. "Mom, I do not know what to say. I did not choose to have appendicitis. I certainly did not choose to have it rupture. I called everyone in the family for help, and not one person came to the hospital. We were busy with the party, Ethan. You know how much planning went into it. More important than your son's life." Another pause. "You are being dramatic. Appendectomies are routine procedures. A ruptured appendix is not routine. It is life-threatening." My voice had risen, and I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. Taking a breath to calm myself, I continued more quietly. "The surgeon told me I was lucky they caught it when they did." Well, regardless of how serious it was or wasn't, the fact remains that Brian and Madison feel their engagement announcement was overshadowed by your situation. They are very upset and they deserve an apology. I could not believe what I was hearing. "You want me to apologize to Brian and Madison for having emergency surgery?" "For the timing of it, yes. And for sending those dramatic text messages during their special moment." Before I could respond, I heard Uncle Robert's voice in the background. "Is that Ethan? Put him on speaker. I want to talk to him." My mother obliged, and suddenly, Uncle Robert's booming voice filled my ear. "Listen here, Ethan. We all know what you did. You have always tried to one-up Brian, and this time you went too far. Faking a medical emergency. That is low even for you." "I did not fake anything, Uncle Robert. I had surgery. I have the hospital bills and a 6-inch incision to prove it." "Convenient excuse. You probably went to the hospital with a stomachache and convinced them to do unnecessary surgery just to steal Brian's thunder." The accusation was so outlandish that I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it in disbelief. Rachel, who had come to check on me, raised her eyebrows questioningly. I put the phone on speaker so she could hear. "Uncle Robert, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. No one gets unnecessary abdominal surgery for attention." "Well, the family is not buying your story. Brian wants an apology, and he deserves one. You owe it to him and Madison to make this right." Rachel, who had been listening with increasing alarm, finally lost her composure. "Excuse me, but are you seriously accusing Ethan of faking a ruptured appendix? Do you have any idea how dangerous and painful that condition is? He could have died." There was a moment of startled silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice tight with disapproval. "Ethan, is that your girlfriend? This is a family matter. It is inappropriate to involve outsiders." Rachel's face flushed with anger. "I am the only one who showed up at the hospital. I am the one taking care of him now. Where were you, his family, when he needed you?" "We had prior commitments," my mother said stiffly. "A birthday party was more important than your son's life. What kind of mother are you?" "Rachel," I said softly, seeing how agitated she was becoming. The last thing I needed was to exacerbate family tensions, even though everything Rachel said was justified. "No," Ethan, Rachel insisted. "This is not okay. They are gaslighting you about a serious medical condition. I was on the phone with your doctor. I saw your surgical site. This was not fake, and it is cruel and delusional to suggest otherwise." My mother's voice turned ice cold. "Ethan, I think you need to control your girlfriend. When you are ready to apologize to Brian and Madison, you can call back. Until then, I think we have nothing more to discuss." The line went dead. Rachel and I stared at each other in stunned silence. The confrontation had left me shaking, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. The physical stress of the argument had clearly been too much for my recovering body. "Your temperature is up," Rachel said, pressing the back of her hand to my forehead, shifting instantly into nurse mode. "That is enough excitement for today. You need to rest." As she helped me lie back against the pillows, I could not stop replaying the conversation in my mind. The family narrative had somehow twisted my life-threatening medical emergency into a deliberate attack on Brian's happiness, and they expected me to apologize for it. "Rachel," I said weakly as she adjusted my blankets, "am I crazy or are they?" "They are," she said without hesitation. "What they are doing is textbook gaslighting and emotional manipulation. And it is wrong, Ethan. So wrong." As the pain medication pulled me towards sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. How had I never seen this toxic dynamic before? And now that I had, what was I going to do about it? The days following my discharge from the hospital were a blur of pain management, antibiotics, and uncomfortable revelations. Rachel took excellent care of me, changing my dressings, monitoring my temperature, and ensuring I stayed hydrated. But while my physical condition slowly improved, the situation with my family deteriorated rapidly. The text messages continued escalating in both frequency and hostility. "Amanda, Brian, and Madison postponed their engagement party because of your drama. I hope you are happy. Aunt Linda, your cousin is heartbroken that his special moment was ruined. When are you going to make this right? Uncle Steve always knew you were jealous of Brian's success, but this takes the cake." Even my father, who had remained mostly silent until now, weighed in. "Your mother is very upset. You need to call and make things right." Not a single message asked how I was feeling or offered help with my recovery. It was as if my medical emergency had been erased from the narrative, replaced by a fictional story where I had deliberately sabotaged Brian's proposal out of jealousy. On the third day of my recovery, my phone rang. It was Brian. I hesitated before answering, unsure if I could handle another accusation, but curiosity won out. "Hello, Ethan." Brian's voice was cool, controlled. "We need to talk about what happened." "Yes, we do." I agreed, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I had emergency surgery, and not one person from our family came to the hospital. That was pretty hurtful, Brian." There was a pause, then a short, disbelieving laugh. "Wow. Just wow. So you are still playing the victim here." "Playing the victim?" Brian. "I had a ruptured appendix. I could have died." "Always so dramatic," Brian sighed. "Look, I understand you might have been sick, but the timing, Ethan. You know exactly what you were doing with all those texts and calls right when I was about to make my announcement. I did not know you were planning to propose. No one told me that. It was supposed to be a surprise. But you always have to be the center of attention, do not you? You could not stand the thought of me having one special day." The accusation was so far from reality that it left me momentarily speechless. In all our years growing up together, I had always been the one in the background, the responsible one who made sure everything ran smoothly while Brian soaked up the adulation. "That is not true, and you know it," I finally said. "When have I ever tried to be the center of attention?" "Please," Brian scoffed. "You have been jealous of me since we were kids, always trying to one-up me with your fancy college degree and your big city job. I worked hard for those things," I said, feeling my temper rise despite my best efforts to stay calm. "No one handed them to me." "And what is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Look, Brian, I am sorry if your proposal did not go exactly as planned, but I did not choose to have a medical emergency." "Save your fake apologies," Brian snapped. "Madison is devastated. We had to announce our engagement while everyone was distracted by your so-called emergency. The professional photographer barely got any good shots because people kept checking their phones." The same complaint my mother had made, as if photo opportunities were more important than my health. The realization of how little my family valued me hit like a physical blow. "I do not know what you want from me, Brian. A real apology would be a start, and an explanation of why you always have to ruin things for me." "I am not going to apologize for having emergency surgery," I said firmly. and I have never tried to ruin anything for you. In fact, I have spent years cheering you on and supporting you." "Right," Brian's voice dripped with sarcasm. "That is why you chose that exact moment to send out your little SOS." The conversation was going nowhere. Brian was entrenched in his narrative, and no amount of logic was going to change his mind. "I think we should talk about this when I am feeling better," I said, suddenly exhausted. "Sure, run away from the conversation. Typical Ethan." Brian's voice hardened. "Just know that the family is pretty united on this. You owe Madison and me an apology, and until we get one, do not expect things to go back to normal." After hanging up, I lay back against the pillows, my surgical sight throbbing in tune with my racing heart. Rachel found me like that, staring at the ceiling, my phone clutched in my hand. "Another family call?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. I nodded. "Brian this time. Same story as my mom. I apparently ruined his proposal on purpose and owe him an apology." Rachel took my phone gently from my hand and placed it on the nightstand. "Ethan, I want to try something. The next time someone from your family calls, I want to record your side of the conversation. Not to use against them or anything, but so you can hear yourself." "Hear myself?" "Yes. I think you might not realize how you sound when you talk to them. How you automatically apologize and take responsibility for things that are not your fault." I considered this. "Okay, but I am not sure what good it will do." The opportunity came sooner than expected. That evening my phone rang again. It was my father. Rachel set up her phone to record and nodded encouragingly. "Hi, Dad," I answered. "Ethan." My father's voice was gruff, uncomfortable. "Your mother is very upset about this whole situation." "I know, Dad. She made that clear. She says you refused to apologize to Brian and Madison for having appendicitis." "Yes, I refused to apologize for that." My father sighed heavily. "Look, son, sometimes in family we have to be the bigger person, even when we do not think we have done anything wrong. Dad, I was rushed into emergency surgery. I needed my family and no one came. How am I the one who needs to apologize here? It was bad timing, that is all. No one is saying you planned to get sick, but the way you handled it, sending all those messages during Brian's big moment." "I sent those messages because I was going into surgery. I was scared, Dad. I thought I might not wake up." My voice broke slightly on the last words. There was a long pause. "Well, you did wake up, and now we need to move forward. The way to do that is to make things right with Brian and Madison." "Make things right? What about them making things right with me? No one even visited me in the hospital, Dad." "We were busy with the party, Ethan. You know how much planning went into it. More important than your son's life." Another heavy sigh. "You are being dramatic. The doctors took care of you. You are fine." "I am not fine. I had major surgery. I am in pain. And my entire family is treating me like I did something wrong by getting sick. See, this is the problem. You are making everything about you again." I felt like I was losing my mind. Getting upset that no one cared about my life-threatening medical emergency is making everything about me. "You know what I mean, Ethan. Just call your cousin, apologize, and we can put this whole thing behind us." "I am not going to apologize for something that was not my fault." "Then I do not know what to tell you. Your mother is not going to let this go, and neither is Brian. You need to be the peacemaker here like you always are." After the call ended, Rachel stopped the recording and played it back. Hearing my own voice, the way it shifted from confident to uncertain, the way I kept defending myself against absurd accusations rather than calling out the fundamental wrongness of the situation, was eye-opening. "Do you see what is happening?" Rachel asked gently. "They are making you responsible for managing their emotions. They are turning your medical emergency into a personal attack on them. And the scary part is you almost sound like you believe it might be your fault." She was right. Years of family conditioning had trained me to accept responsibility for keeping the peace, even at the cost of my own well-being. The next day brought a new complication. The hospital sent preliminary billing information with a significant portion marked as patient responsibility. Confused, I called the insurance company listed on my card. I am sorry, Mr. Anderson, but according to our records, your coverage was terminated 3 months ago, the representative informed me. Your parents removed you from their family plan. What that is impossible. They never told me. The notification would have been sent to the policyholder, your father. We show that a letter was sent informing all covered members of the change. I had never received such a letter. My parents had removed me from the family health insurance without telling me, and now I was facing thousands of dollars in medical bills for a surgery that had saved my life. When I called my father to ask about this, his response was evasive. We had to make some changes to our coverage. I meant to tell you, but it slipped my mind. Slipped your mind? Dad, this is going to cost me thousands of dollars. Well, you have that good job in the city. We figured you could get your own insurance. The casual way he dismissed potentially bankrupting medical debt was the final straw. This was beyond neglect or misplaced priorities. This felt deliberate. That evening, James from work stopped by to check on me, bringing a care package from the office. As he sat in Rachel's living room, I found myself recounting the bizarre family response to my surgery. Let me get this straight, James said, his expression incredulous. You had a ruptured appendix emergency surgery, and your family is mad at you because it happened on the same day your cousin got engaged. Hearing it summarized so plainly highlighted the absurdity. Yes, that is basically it. James shook his head. Ethan, I hate to say this about your family, but that is seriously messed up. Like textbook toxic behavior. I am starting to realize that I admitted. My brother went through something similar with his in-laws, James continued, always being made to feel like the bad guy for normal, reasonable things. His therapist called it scapegoating. The term resonated uncomfortably. Had I been the family's scapegoat all these years without realizing it? As James was leaving, my phone pinged with a group text from my mother's Sunday dinner this weekend. Brian and Madison will be there. We expect everyone to attend and help put this unfortunate situation behind us. 4 p.m. sharp. The subtext was clear. This was my opportunity to publicly apologize and restore family harmony. The fact that I was still recovering from major surgery seemed irrelevant. Rachel read the message over my shoulder. You are not seriously considering going, are you? I looked up at her, a new resolve forming. Actually, I am, but not for the reason they think. Sunday arrived, and with it, a strange calm had settled over me. The past week had been a revelation, each interaction with my family, peeling back another layer of dysfunctional dynamics that I had normalized for far too long. My surgical wound was healing well, but the emotional wound inflicted by my family's response to my medical emergency had only deepened. Are you sure about this? Rachel asked as she helped me button my shirt. My movements were still restricted by pain and the healing incision. You do not have to face them yet. You are still recovering. I am sure, I said with a certainty that surprised even me. If I do not do this now, nothing will change. They will keep gaslighting me, and I will keep doubting myself. Rachel nodded, though concern still shadowed her eyes. I will drop you off and wait in the car as we discussed. If at any point you need to leave, just text me, and I will come to the door. Thank you. I squeezed her hand. For everything. Before leaving Rachel's apartment, I gathered several items into a folder. My hospital discharge papers, the surgical report describing the ruptured appendix, and extensive infection photos of my surgical site that the hospital had taken. For medical documentation and the preliminary medical bills showing I had been dropped from the family insurance. The drive to my parents' suburban home was tense but quiet. I used the time to center myself to rehearse what I wanted to say, not in a scripted way, but to ensure I would not be derailed by emotional manipulation or gaslighting. When we arrived, Rachel pulled up a short distance from the house. Remember, I am right here if you need me. I nodded, took a deep breath, and walked to the front door with as much dignity as my healing body would allow. My mother answered her expression, shifting from a prepared smile to a tight-lipped assessment as she saw me. Ethan, you came. Her eyes flicked past me, searching for Rachel. Is your girlfriend not joining us? No, Mom. This is between family. She seemed satisfied by this, stepping aside to let me enter. The house smelled of pot roast and fresh-baked rolls, the traditional Sunday dinner menu unchanged since my childhood. In the living room, the extended family had already gathered. Conversations halted as I entered, all eyes turning to me with expressions ranging from disapproval to curiosity. Brian and Madison sat in the place of honor on the central couch, their clasped hands prominently displaying Madison's engagement ring. My father stood by the fireplace, nursing a scotch. Amanda perched on an armchair, her gaze averted. Uncles, aunts, and cousins filled the remaining seats, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. "Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence," Uncle Robert announced, breaking the awkward silence. "Feeling better, are we?" The sarcasm in his tone was unmistakable. I chose not to rise to the bait, simply nodding and taking a seat in the only remaining chair directly across from Brian and Madison. My mother bustled in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. I thought we might use this time to clear the air about recent events." She looked pointedly at me, the expectation clear. This was my cue to apologize. Instead, I placed my folder on the coffee table. "Yes, I think that is a good idea. I would like to address what happened last weekend." Brian shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances with Madison. My father took a long sip of his scotch. The stage was set for the confrontation they had orchestrated, but I sensed they were unprepared for me to take control of the narrative. "First, I want to congratulate Brian and Madison on their engagement," I began, keeping my voice steady and sincere. "Finding someone you want to build a life with is truly special." This seemed to catch them off guard. Madison offered a tentative smile while Brian's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "That said, I think there has been a significant misunderstanding about what happened last weekend," I continued. "I did not choose to have a medical emergency during Brian's birthday party. My appendix ruptured, requiring immediate surgery to save my life." "We know you were in the hospital, Ethan," my mother interjected impatiently. "No one is disputing that. It is the timing, and the way you handled it, sending all those desperate messages when you knew it was Brian's special moment." "I did not know Brian was planning to propose," I said calmly. "No one told me that." "It was a surprise," Amanda exclaimed. "We were not supposed to tell anyone." "Exactly," I nodded. "So how could I possibly have planned a medical emergency to coincide with a surprise I did not know about?" This simple logic seemed to momentarily stun the room into silence. Uncle Robert broke it with a dismissive wave. "The point is, your so-called emergency ruined a once-in-a-lifetime moment for Brian and Madison. The least you could do is acknowledge that and apologize." I turned to look directly at Uncle Robert. "I called every person in this room when I was being prepped for emergency surgery. Not one of you came to the hospital. Not one of you even called to check if I survived the operation. We were busy with the party," Aunt Linda protested. "You know how much planning went into it." "More important than my life?" I asked quietly. The question hung in the air unanswered. I opened my folder and removed the surgical report. The surgeon removed my ruptured appendix and found extensive bacterial contamination in my abdominal cavity. I explained, placing the report on the coffee table. "Dr. Patel informed me that if I had delayed seeking treatment by even a few more hours, I could have developed peritonitis, which can be fatal." I next removed the photos of my surgical site clinical images that clearly showed the severity of the procedure I had undergone. "This is not a minor operation," I said, my voice still calm but firm. "This was life-saving emergency surgery." My mother blanched at the images but quickly recovered. "No one is saying you were not sick, Ethan, but your timing was very inconsiderate." The absurdity of the statement hung in the air. I could see some family members shifting uncomfortably, the narrative they had accepted beginning to crumble under the weight of medical evidence. "Mom, do you honestly believe I ruptured my appendix on purpose to take attention away from Brian's proposal? Is that really what you think of me?" She did not answer directly. "All we know is that it was very convenient timing." "Convenient," I repeated incredulously. "There was nothing convenient about it. I nearly died. Alone. Because every single person in this room chose a party over being there for me." Brian leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Always the victim, aren't you, Ethan? Some things never change." "I am not playing the victim, Brian. I am stating facts. I removed the medical bills from my folder. Here is another fact I discovered this week, that Mom and Dad removed me from the family health insurance 3 months ago without telling me. These emergency surgery bills will cost me over $20,000. My father at least had the decency to look uncomfortable at this revelation. Several aunts and uncles exchanged surprised glances. We were making changes to our coverage, my father mumbled. I meant to tell you. But you did not, I said. Just like no one bothered to come to the hospital or even call to see if I was okay after surgery. The atmosphere in the room had shifted. What had been planned as my public apology had transformed into something entirely different. For perhaps the first time I was holding my family accountable. Uncle Robert, sensing the change, attempted to regain control of the situation. This is all very dramatic, Ethan, but it does not change the fact that Brian and Madison's special moment was ruined. The professional photographer we hired barely got any good shots because everyone was checking their phones about your situation. It was such a petty concern in the face of what I had endured that I almost laughed. Instead, I looked directly at my uncle. I think what you are really upset about is that for once I inadvertently disrupted the family narrative, the narrative where Brian is the golden child and I am the reliable background character who never makes waves. That is ridiculous, my mother scoffed, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? I asked. Then why? When I had a life-threatening medical emergency, was everyone's first concern how it affected Brian's party? Why am I being asked to apologize for having emergency surgery? No one had a good answer. Amanda stared at the floor. My father took another long sip of his scotch. Only Aunt Sarah, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. He has a point, she said softly. We should have been there for him. Thank you, Aunt Sarah, I said, genuinely touched by this small acknowledgement. I gathered my documents back into the folder and stood up, wincing slightly at the pull on my healing incision. I came here today because I wanted to be clear about what happened and how your response made me feel. I nearly died last weekend, and not one person in my family was there for me. Instead, you have spent the past week trying to make me feel guilty for having a medical emergency. I looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. I will not apologize for getting sick. I will not apologize for seeking medical help when I needed it. And I will not apologize for expecting my family to care about my well-being. My mother's face had gone pale. So that is it. You come here, make these accusations, and then what? What do you expect from us? It was a fair question, and one I had thought deeply about during my recovery. I expect acknowledgement of what actually happened. I expect an apology for the way I was treated. And going forward, I expect to be treated with the same consideration and respect that every other member of this family receives. Brian scoffed. Typical Ethan making demands. They are not demands, Brian. They are boundaries. And if they cannot be respected, then I will need to reconsider my place in this family. The statement landed like a thunderclap. For a family that prided itself on presenting a united front to the outside world, the idea that I might step away was almost unthinkable. You would cut off your own family, my father asked, speaking up for the first time in several minutes. Over one misunderstanding. This is not one misunderstanding, I replied. This is a pattern that I am only now recognizing, and I am not cutting anyone off. I am simply saying that I deserve better than what I have received from all of you this past week. I moved toward the door, each step deliberate despite my still healing body. I will not be staying for dinner. I need time to recover both physically and emotionally. When you are ready to have an honest conversation about what happened and how we move forward, you know how to reach me. As I reached the door, Aunt Sarah stood up. Ethan, wait. I will walk you out. In the entryway away from the others, she touched my arm gently. I am sorry I did not come to the hospital. I should have been there. The simple acknowledgement, the first genuine apology I had received from any family member, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, Aunt Sarah. That means a lot. This family has never been good at admitting mistakes, she said quietly. But what happened to you was wrong. I will talk to them. I nodded gratefully and stepped outside into the fresh air, texting Rachel to let her know I was ready to leave. As her car pulled up, I could see my family watching from the window, their expressions a mix of shock, anger, and from a few the first hints of genuine reflection. As we drove away, Rachel glanced over at me. "How did it go?" "Better than I expected," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. For the first time in my life, I stood up for myself with my family. Really stood up for myself. "I am proud of you," she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. That could not have been easy. It had not been easy. But as we put distance between ourselves and my parents' house, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if I had set down a burden I had not even realized I was carrying. The weeks following my confrontation with my family were surprisingly peaceful. I returned to Rachel's apartment to complete my recovery, grateful for her unwavering support and the space to process the seismic shift in my family relationships. My physical healing progressed steadily, the surgical wound closing properly, the pain diminishing day by day. The emotional healing, however, would prove to be a longer journey. 3 days after the Sunday dinner showdown, I received an unexpected call from Aunt Sarah. "Ethan, I want you to know that what you said really made an impact," she began, "at least on some of us. After you left, there was quite a discussion." "What kind of discussion?" I asked, trying not to get my hopes up. "The kind where uncomfortable truths finally get acknowledged," she said. I pointed out that for years you have been the one we all count on, the one who drops everything to help, who never complains. And the one time you needed us, we failed you completely. Her words validated what I had been feeling but had struggled to articulate. "How did everyone take that?" "Mixed reactions," she admitted. "Your parents are still defensive and Brian is Brian. But a few others, including your cousins Mark and Jessica, started sharing times when they had noticed the double standard in how you and Brian are treated. It got pretty heated. The fact that others had noticed the pattern was both validating and saddening. How long had this dynamic been visible to everyone except me? "I appreciate you speaking up, Aunt Sarah. I should have done it years ago," she said regretfully. "And I should have come to the hospital. I am truly sorry, Ethan." That apology, freely given, without expectation or condition, was like a balm to my wounded spirit. "Thank you. That means more than you know." 2 days later, Mark and Jessica showed up at Rachel's apartment with home-cooked meals and genuine concern. As we sat in the living room, they shared their own stories of feeling sidelined in favor of Brian and other family favorites. "I always thought it was just me," Jessica confessed, "that I was being oversensitive or something." "Me too," I admitted. "It is strange how you can normalize things that are actually really hurtful." Mark nodded. "When you laid it all out like that on Sunday with the medical reports and everything, it was like suddenly seeing the situation clearly for the first time. The way everyone was more concerned about party photos than you nearly dying, it was eye-opening." Their visit marked the beginning of a new kind of family connection, one based on authentic support, rather than obligation or performance. It was a small circle but a meaningful one. My workplace proved unexpectedly supportive as well. When I met with HR to discuss my health insurance situation, explaining that I had been unknowingly dropped from my parents' plan, they expedited my enrollment in the company plan and made it retroactive to cover my surgery. "This is an unusual circumstance," the HR director explained, "but your supervisor, Patricia, advocated strongly on your behalf. She said you are an invaluable member of the team." The support extended beyond administrative help. James organized a fundraiser among our colleagues to help with my out-of-pocket medical expenses, raising nearly $5,000. The whole office pitched in, James told me when he presented the check. "Everyone was shocked when they heard what happened with your family. We wanted you to know that you have people in your corner." I was overwhelmed by their generosity. "I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything," James assured me. "Just focus on getting better. Your desk is waiting for you whenever you are ready to come back." This outpouring of support from colleagues, some of whom I barely knew beyond professional interactions, contrasted sharply with my family's response and reinforced what Rachel had been gently suggesting: I needed to reevaluate what family truly meant. On her recommendation, I started seeing Dr. Michaels, a therapist, specializing in family trauma. In our sessions, I began to understand the dynamics that had shaped my relationships for decades. What you are describing is a classic scapegoat role Dr. Michaels explained during our third session. In dysfunctional family systems, there is often one person who becomes the repository for family tensions and problems. They are expected to absorb negativity while maintaining the family's preferred narrative. And that person was me, I said, the pieces falling into place. Based on what you have shared, yes. Your role was to be the responsible one, the fixer, the one who puts everyone else first. When you had a crisis that required others to support you instead, it disrupted that established dynamic, and the family reacted with hostility rather than empathy. Understanding the pattern did not immediately heal the hurt, but it provided a framework for processing my experiences and setting healthier boundaries moving forward. About a month after the surgery, when I was back in my own apartment and gradually returning to work part-time, my mother finally called. I had not heard from her directly since the Sunday dinner confrontation. "Ethan," she began, her voice lacking its usual confidence, "I have been thinking about what happened." I waited, giving her space to continue rather than jumping in to fill the silence as I would have done in the past. "I realize now that we should have come to the hospital," she said finally. "It was wrong of us not to be there for you." It was not a full acknowledgement of everything that had transpired, but it was something. Yes, it was wrong, I agreed simply. We got caught up in the excitement of Brian's proposal, and we made a mistake. It was more than a mistake, Mom. It revealed how little my well-being matters to this family compared to keeping up appearances and celebrating Brian. There was a long pause. "That is not fair, Ethan. We love you. We have always supported you." "Have you?" I asked quietly. "When was the last time my achievements were celebrated the way Brian's are? When was the last time you dropped everything to help me the way I have always done for everyone else in the family?" She had no immediate answer. "It is not a competition," she said, finally. "No, it should not be," I agreed. "That is exactly my point. Family support should not be conditional or competitive. It should be reliable." Another long silence followed. "I do not know what you want me to say, Ethan. I am not looking for a specific script, Mom. I am looking for genuine understanding and a commitment to change how things work in this family." "Well," she said, her voice shifting back toward its usual brisk efficiency, "we all miss you at Sunday dinners. Your father and I hope you will come back soon." It was clear she was not ready or willing to engage with the deeper issues I had raised. "I need more time," I said, "and I need to see real change before I reintegrate into family gatherings." "I see," she replied, the disappointment evident in her tone. "Well, when you are ready, we will be here." The conversation ended without the resolution I might have hoped for, but with a new clarity about where things stood. My mother had acknowledged a mistake, but was not yet ready to address the systemic problems in our family dynamics. A week later, my father made his own attempt at reconciliation, showing up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning. He stood awkwardly in my living room, looking around as if seeing my space for the first time, though he had visited before. "Place looks good," he said gruffly. "You are keeping up with it even while recovering." "Rachel has been helping," I explained, wondering where this conversation was heading. He nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Here," he said, thrusting it toward me. "For the medical bills." I opened the envelope to find a check for $10,000. "Dad, you do not have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "It was wrong taking you off the insurance without telling you. I should have made sure you had your own coverage first." It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get from my father, a man who had always struggled to express emotions directly. "Thank you," I said, accepting both the check and the sentiment behind it. He nodded again, already moving toward the door. "Your mother misses you," he said, pausing with his hand on the doorknob. "We all do." Before I could respond, he was gone, the conversation over almost before it had begun. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Not everyone in the family was ready for reconciliation. Brian remained steadfastly convinced that I had deliberately overshadowed his engagement, a narrative he seemed unwilling to re-examine regardless of evidence. He sent a single text message that read, "Some people never change. Enjoy your pity party." I chose not to respond, recognizing that engaging would only reinforce the dysfunctional dynamic. Instead, I focused on nurturing the relationships that were evolving in healthier directions with Aunt Sarah, with cousins Mark and Jessica, and with the chosen family I was building among friends and colleagues. Rachel remained my steadfast support through it all. Our relationship deepened through the crisis, her unwavering presence, a constant reminder of what genuine care looked like. "You know," she said one evening as we sat on my balcony watching the sunset over the Chicago skyline, "when I first met your family, I was confused by how you described them versus how they actually behaved toward you. You talked about this close-knit, supportive family, but what I saw was something very different. I think I had convinced myself that was the reality," I admitted. "It was easier than acknowledging the truth." She took my hand. "The truth is hard sometimes, but living an authentic life based on truth is ultimately less painful than maintaining illusions." 6 months after my emergency surgery, I received a promotion at work to lead designer on a major new development project. The old me would have mentioned it briefly at family dinner, expecting minimal acknowledgement. The new me celebrated properly with the people who had proven their support: Rachel, James, and other colleagues, Aunt Sarah, Mark, and Jessica. We gathered at my favorite restaurant, toasting to new beginnings and authentic connections. The happiness in that room, the genuine joy in my accomplishment, underscored everything I had learned about what real support looked like. That same week, I had a final conversation with my mother, setting clear boundaries for our relationship moving forward. "I am willing to attend family gatherings again," I told her, "but things need to be different. I will not tolerate being dismissed or devalued. I will not accept being gaslighted about my experiences. And I expect the same level of support and celebration that other family members receive." "Ethan, that sounds very transactional," my mother said hesitantly. "It is not transactional, Mom. It is mutual respect. That is the minimum standard for any healthy relationship." There was a pause as she absorbed this. "We will try," she said finally. "It may take time for everyone to adjust to the new arrangement." I understand that, I assured her. "I am not expecting perfection, just genuine effort and respect." As I ended the call, I felt a sense of closure that had eluded me for months. Whether my family could meet my standards for healthy interaction remained to be seen, but I was no longer willing to compromise my well-being to maintain a facade of family harmony. Life-threatening situations have a way of clarifying what truly matters. My ruptured appendix nearly took my life, but it also ruptured the illusions I had maintained about my family relationships. In the painful aftermath, I discovered my own worth and the courage to demand the respect and care I deserved. If my story resonates with you, know that you are not alone. Many of us grow up accepting dynamics that we later realize are harmful. The journey to setting boundaries and building authentic relationships is challenging but infinitely worthwhile. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members? How did you navigate that difficult process? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story helped you feel less alone, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more supportive than the family we are born into, and that is okay. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward healthy relationships and self-respect.